Aloha and welcome to Vice Cubez. I'm your host, Raven Echo. Thank you for joining me today. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am on Spreaker, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Come follow me on Instagram at Vice Cubez, where I often share pics that correlate with each episode, and come visit my website at vicecubezpodcast.com. You can also send me an email at vicecubez@gmail.com. Today I'll be talking about the Xerox Mass Shooting on Oahu in 1999. Listener discretion is strongly advised. On the morning of November 2nd, 1999, Honolulu Xerox service technician Byron Uesugi went to work at the Xerox Engineering Systems office at 1200 North Nimitz Highway in Honolulu. It was anything but a normal Tuesday. At around 8 a.m., gunshots rang out, and by the end of it all, 7 men lay dead or dying, and Byron Uesugi fled in a company van. He was found sitting in his van near the Hawaii Nature Center in Makiki above downtown Honolulu. A standoff with officers from the Hawaii Police Department ensued and lasted 5 hours. Uesugi surrendered at around 3 p.m. Uesugi's victims were Jason Balatico, age 33, Ford Kanehira, age 41, Ronald Kataoka, age 50, Ronald Kawamai, age 54, Melvin Lee, age 58, Peter Mark, age 46, and John Sakamoto, age 36. Several of them had young children. All were Byron Uesugi's co-workers at Xerox. Byron Uesugi was born in 1959 to parents Hiroyuki and Bonnie Uesugi in Honolulu and grew up in Nu'uanu. He has one brother, Dennis. He graduated from Roosevelt High School in 1977, and according to his schoolmates, he was quiet and never made any trouble. He was a member of the school's Army JROTC program and the riflery team. He bred and raised goldfish and koi, which he raised in tanks in his backyard and would sell them to local pet stores. According to his brother, Uesugi crashed a car right after his graduation in 1977 and sustained a serious head injury and was not the same afterwards. Byron started working for the Xerox Corporation in 1984. In 1988, Uesugi's mother passed away of cancer, and by all accounts, he was very close to his mother, and her death affected him deeply. Around the same time, Uesugi started complaining about bad headaches. According to his father, he complained about a, quote, a poking sensation in his head, unquote. Uesugi was a gun collector and had up to 25 guns registered in his name. After his arrest, police confiscated 11 handguns, 5 rifles, and 2 shotguns from his house. In 1993, Byron Uesugi was charged with third-degree criminal property damage and was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation and anger management after he kicked in an elevator door. According to his coworkers, Uesugi had mentioned doing a mass shooting if he were ever to get fired. His coworkers said that he talked openly about this. Uesugi complained that his coworkers were harassing him, that they were conspiring against him, sabotaging him, tormenting him, and spreading rumors about him. By all accounts, his accusations were unfounded. At around the same time, according to Uesugi's brother, he told him that a shadow had pinned him down. The family had the house blessed by a priest. It did not help. His father, later that year, suggested that Byron see a psychologist. He didn't. In the period leading up to the shooting, the Xerox Corporation began to phase out the copiers that Uesugi was accustomed to working on. Uesugi did not like this at all, and he refused to be trained on how to service the new machines. And by all accounts, he felt as though the company was setting him up to fail. On November 1st, 1999, Uesugi's manager informed him that on November 2nd, 1999, he would begin training on these new machines. That training never happened because on the morning of November 2nd, 1999, Byron Uesugi walked into his office building armed with the 9mm Glock 17 semi-automatic handgun and 2 extra magazines of ammunition, went into a conference room where a morning meeting was about to take place, and fired up to 28 times, killing 6 of his coworkers and his supervisor. He fired at another man who ran and escaped unharmed. Uesugi then took a company van and fled. He was found parked near the Hawaii Nature Center, where a school field trip was happening, and 35 school kids were locked down inside for 5 hours with no food and water. And 2 nearby schools were also locked down until this ordeal was over. Uesugi sat in the van. He read magazines, smoked cigarettes, and drank water. A police officer tossed a cell phone toward the van, and Uesugi picked it up. The conversation was underway. I read an account that said that Byron's brother Dennis played a big role in talking his brother into surrendering, which ended at just before 3 p.m. with Uesugi exiting the van. Uesugi was arrested and charged with 9 counts. 1 count of first-degree murder, that was count 1. 7 counts of second-degree murder, that was counts 2 through 8. And 1 count of attempted second-degree murder, count 9. Eventually, counts 2 through 8, the second-degree murder counts, were merged with the first-degree murder count. Uesugi pled not guilty by reason of insanity. He also claimed that he feared that his coworkers were conspiring to have him fired. At trial, the defense had 2 doctors testify that Uesugi was insane, Dr. Park Dietz and Dr. Darrell Matthews. Dr. Harold Hall testified for the prosecution that Uesugi did not meet the criteria for either insanity or extreme mental disturbance. Prosecution witness Dr. Michael Wellner testified that, in his opinion, Uesugi was schizophrenic, but that he committed the crimes because he was angry and that he knew what he did was wrong. On June 13, 2000, after less than 90 minutes of deliberation by the jury, Uesugi was found guilty of count 1, murder in the first degree for the 7 deaths, and on count 9, attempted murder in the second degree for the attempted murder of the coworker that was shot but got away. On August 8, 2000, Uesugi was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for count 1, and life in prison without the possibility of parole for count 9, with the sentences to run consecutively. In case you were wondering, Hawaii does not have the death penalty. Uesugi was also ordered to pay $500 restitution and $70,000 to the Crime Victim Compensation Fund. The parole board later ordered that Uesugi must serve a minimum of 235 years before being eligible for parole. Uesugi's appeal was denied by the Hawaii Supreme Court in 2002, and his conviction was upheld. The families of the victims filed a lawsuit against Xerox and the hospital that examined Uesugi. The lawsuit stated that Xerox and the hospital failed to take preventive action based on what they said were clear signs of mental instability. This lawsuit was settled. The terms are unknown. Uesugi is currently incarcerated at the Saguaro Correctional Center in Eloy, Arizona, where many of Hawaii's inmates are housed due to overcrowding at the Halawa Correctional Facility on Oahu. After the incident, Xerox released a statement saying, quote, "That was indeed a dark day for our company when we lost 7 colleagues in a senseless act of violence. We are regularly reviewing and refining these and other initiatives, and our leadership team is personally involved in any situation where the safety and security of our people are in question. They have added resources to increase safety, including a yearly training on workplace violence." Xerox vacated the premises after the shooting, and it stood vacant until 2004 when the producers of the TV show Lost built a soundstage there to record indoor scenes. It is now being leased by a tile company. The Xerox incident was the worst mass murder in the history of Hawaii. Since 1999, unfortunately, terms like active shooter have become commonplace. The U.S. has seen numerous school shootings, workplace shootings, and shootings like the one that took place at a country music festival in Las Vegas, Nevada in 2017. Many companies have mandatory active shooter awareness and response training for their employees. I myself sat through this training a couple of times at my place of employment, and they were taught by officers from the community policing section of the Hawaii County Police Department. And what they teach is run, hide, and fight. Now, this comes directly from the United States Department of Homeland Security, and these are your options when there is an active shooter event. The first option you have is to run. Under that heading, it says, have an escape route and plan in mind, leave your belongings behind, evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow, help others escape if possible, do not attempt to move the wounded, prevent others from entering an area where the active shooter may be, keep your hands visible, call 911 when you are safe. Your second option is to hide. Hide in an area out of the shooter's view. Lock door or block entry to your hiding place. Silence your cell phone, including vibrate mode, and remain quiet. That's a biggie, people. Everyone always has their cell phones on them, and they can give away your position. Your third option is to fight. Fight as a last resort and only when your life is in imminent danger. Attempt to incapacitate the shooter. Act with as much physical aggression as possible. Improvise weapons or throw items at the active shooter. Commit to your actions. Your life depends upon it. So that's what they tell you to do in active shooter training. I don't know if I'd be able to do any of those things. I never been faced with that, and I hope I never have to find out whether or not I can run, hide, or fight. I really hope not. So I think that incidents like these cause certain things to come to light and certain issues to emerge, such as mental health. We've come a long way since this incident, in the last 20 years regarding the issue of mental health. And I think that today reaching out for help isn't as frowned upon as it was 20 years ago. People now, they go to therapy, they talk to their priests, they have support groups. I mean, let's face it, there's a support group for everything. Many employers offer emotional support. There's just so many options for people who are struggling. And I think that recognizing the signs and red flags, not just in others, but, in ourselves, that's a huge step in the right direction to avoid these types of tragedies. As it relates to mental health, you are ineligible to possess a firearm if, among other things, you've been diagnosed as having a significant behavioral, emotional, or mental disorder, or for treatment for organic brain syndromes. For a complete wording of the state law governing firearms permits, you can look up the Hawaii Revised Statutes, Section 134-2. So although he killed 7 men that day, many more lives were affected by Byron Uwisugi's actions. He took sons, fathers, brothers, uncles, and friends away from their families. Kids had to grow up without their dads. Wives had to, go on living without their husbands. Even his own dad, in a sense, lost him. His own brother lost him. I remember when doing the research, reading somewhere where his dad actually said that he wished that Byron had just shot himself instead of, those other men. And, I can feel that. I understand that, because you don't want your child dead, but then you don't want them to be responsible for anyone else's deaths either. And seven deaths. How many lives did that